Hello, all the crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome back to Making Games. So, UI is pretty much done in this here bullet hell game. I should probably just start calling it by its name now. I think we established that was like buggy as hell or something like that, as you can sort of see in this programmer art magenta square. Anyway, last time we did a title screen. Today it is time to go and I think do some other tangentially UI related things, but not quite UI, and that is going to be setting up the game for like translation into other languages. And the way that I'm going to do that, and I thought about doing this in a Bombardier last year, but decided that I really wanted to push the game out the door and that it was just taking forever, and that this was one of the things that kind of ended up on the cutting room floor. But we're going to, when we draw all of the text in the game, we are going to wrap it in a localization function, which is for English will just be a pass-through. The string that you put in will be the string that you get out. If you want to translate your game into German or Spanish or Russian or Portuguese or something that isn't English, it will look up the appropriate language setting and spit out the equivalent string in that language. And it will also serve as a string formatter. So, for example, in English, you might have a string that is like your score is, and I'm going to make this text a little bigger. Your score is like 50 or something like that. But in another language, the 50 might end up somewhere else in the string. So I'm afraid I don't remember enough Italian to remember how the sentence would be set up. It's something like the 50 might end up somewhere else in the string, and for that we're going to need a string formatter to insert the score value where it belongs instead of just copying the string in verbatim, and that will help for other reasons as well when it comes to trying to generalize text like that. So let's get started. I am going to go into I'm gonna make another script group. Let's call it group underscore text, and let's just find a function. So we can call this function. You can call your localization function something helpful. If you want to call it like translate or localize or internationalize or something like that. I recommend picking a name that is on the shorter side because this could be something that you end up typing a lot and you don't want it to be like 20 characters long. I'm just going to call it L. Giving things one character names is a bit of a risky subject sometimes, but a risky matter. But I'm gonna go with L anyway, just because I am again possibly going to be typing this a lot, and I don't want to have to type out a long word every time. And it's gonna take two arguments. One is going to be the text, and the other is going to be arguments. Let's call it args. Because again, shorter names that I don't have to type out a lot. So args is going to be an array. Some strings of text might have two like numerical arguments that you need to insert into them instead of just one. This could be a variadic function. You could use the argument count function if you like, and instead of passing in an array, just pass in varying numbers of arguments. But I've sort of fallen out of favor of doing that. Now that GameMaker Studio 2 has like array literals, I would prefer to just use an array literal. So, let's see. So, the example that I'm going to use, and this is just my convention, you can format your strings in other ways if you wish, is going to be to have strings look something like your score is followed by like a %0, and that's going to indicate that this is going to be replaced with the score value, with the first argument that is passed to the string formatter, and then if you have a second value in the string that you want to interpolate, you might use %1, and that'll be the index 1 in the arguments array. Other languages do this differently. The C-based languages might do like %D for a decimal value, %F for a floating point value, or I for an integer or something like that. I'm going to go with %0 and %1. This is a pattern of text that is not likely to appear in a string other than to indicate that you're supposed to do something special to it, like a control character or something like that. All right, next we're going to want to get like the translated text string for whatever language your game is set to use. And I'm actually going to hold off on that for just a minute. And I always do this. Not always, but I have been for the last couple of years. Formatting my for loops like this. We're going to loop over the arguments array, and then text is going to be string replace all. The string is going to be the text string that we already have. The substring is going to be a %sign followed by the number, the index that we're on, and the new string is going to be args index I, which should be cast to a string first. And then we're going to return text. All right. First, let's deal with our string formatter. I think most of the text in the game, if I were to search for like quotation marks like this, most of the text in the game is going to be in the UI like this. There's a couple of other places, such as like defining the UI layer that's visible by a string name. But most of the text that we're interested in is in the UI. So for example, on the UI where the UI is set up, this is the score multiplier text label. So instead of saying exactly verbatim multiplier colon followed by a string of game.level.score multiplier, we can say let's say L multiplier %0 followed by that value. And I'm going to go a little while before I test this, which is maybe not a good idea, and maybe an argument in favor of doing like connecting the level select screen to the actual levels first before I did this, so that we can actually go between levels and stuff like that and see that it's working. But by the end of this video, both of those things will be done. Let's see, that is setting a UI screen. I'm just going to search through every instance of like the double quotation mark in this game and update all of the ones that are relevant to the game. This one will be score. This will be the same deal. As you can see, if I set this up correctly, there needs to be a comma there. I shouldn't have to do that much work to extract the localized text like this. If I had waited until later in the game's development before I started to do this, it certainly would have been a lot more complicated. So this is going to be the charge level. I will leave that cast to a string, and since this is a maybe I don't need that. This should be followed by a %sign because there would be like a %sign after that number. And it won't be interpolated because it's not followed by another number that's going to be like an argument in the array. Let's see, that is setting a screen. Level name. This one will not have any arguments. Should I make the L function? If your string doesn't have any arguments to be passed into it like this, it may be a little bit redundant to have to pass in an empty array after this, which doesn't do anything anyway, so I'll make that an optional argument. Health, that's an easy one. Alright, here's one of interest. This is the like the screen dimensions, which is simply, it's no actual text, it's just a number x another number. I am going to leave this alone. I'm not going to, if I really wanted to, I could do something like %0 x %1 and then put this in an array. But that's I don't think that's going to be different in any language anywhere, because that's really just like a number. And it's not like text, so we'll leave that for now. So high score TBA isn't actually a number yet, but we can give that the same treatment anyway. TBA is my favorite number. Here's another interesting one. Full screen is going to be like an on or off value, except on and off are also English words. So I'm going to also localize each of these into whatever the equivalent in whatever language would be. Since these are words and not just numbers. And the last one I think that I have left is going to be the effect volume. And we'll just real quick give that the exact same treatment. Okay. Let's see. There's one other... Was there one other thing that I wanted to mention? Oh, the actual names of the languages. These I will leave alone. These are always going to say English, and then English Pirate, and then like whatever other languages I have added. They're not always going to be like I wouldn't put German on the language list. I would put Deutsch on the language list so that it's the name for the language in that language. Like if I were to go with like simplified or traditional Chinese or something, I wouldn't put this. I would actually look up the characters that represent that and use that. So I will not have to translate these individual text strings. All right. So if I run the game now, everything should look as it was before, and I won't be able to actually get into any of these levels. And you know what I also did not do is the variable definitions windows, and also GameMaker is doing that thing. And I really hope that by the time this video is out, they push out an update so that this doesn't be a problem anymore. But when you open a new project after you update the IDE, it will not save code windows, and that's really annoying. Anyway, all of the text in the game is just defined in a variable definition. So, for example, the back button. What is this? This is UI settings. If I were to open up the back button, the text that is just defined in the variable definitions window. I could go through all the text in the game and set that to an expression, but I could also, in the create event for... If I had one thing that I could change about the IDE, like, right now, it would be when you leave the room editor tab, the room editor tab should not stay open, like when you go back to another workspace. Anyway, where was I? UI text. What's the parent UI button object? You are the one who has the text variable definition, right? No, you are not. Is this in? This is in. Huh. Shouldn't it be? It's a redundant variable definition here. Okay, let's move this to the parent UI. Not all UI elements will have something like this. Will actually display text, but it feels like having multiple UI elements need to redefine the same thing feels a little bit wasteful. You, I'm sure, are not going to have, yeah. It'll be inherited, but you won't have it for yourself. And anyway, since variable definitions in GameMaker are initialized before the create event, so I could say simply text is going to be equal to L text. So we're going to take the text that goes in text goes here, and we are going to translate it before we do anything else. Right? And if I run the game now, we should see the exact same thing that we start with. We do not. Buttons, hello? Oh, you know what I did? I shouldn't have messed with that. Because that would have, like, deleted the variable definition that was in all of the instances in the whole UI and, like, reset it when I recreated it. I shouldn't have messed with that. Okay. I won't mess with that. All right, source controller to the rescue. I can discard those changes. Can also discard the changes in the parent UI create event. All right, next I'm going to need to actually handle the looking up the text in whatever the target language is, and to do that, I'm going to make another like macro global object. We'll call it text. And then we can say text is going to equal something, and what that something is going to be a... Actually, we'll say this is an array, and this will be an array for every language defined in the game, so English, parentheses, pirate, German, Russian, Portuguese, whatever I said earlier. The indices in the array will correspond to each one of these, so to look up translated text, we'll just look up text index settings language index, and that's going to give us like the object, which is going to contain a key value pair for every one of the strings. And the way that the strings are actually going to be stored, you could hardcode them into your program. You could just hardcode them into your executable. I don't recommend it because it makes changing or adding things kind of a pain. I'm going to load things from a file. GameMaker has a... let's actually define this to array create. The array length settings.languages. And that's just gonna like give us an array of this length, and we can fill it in later. The way that I'm actually going to store the data on the disk is going to be in a, I think, a CSV file. So GameMaker has a nice function called load_CSV. If you're not familiar with comma-separated values, they're basically a rudimentary spreadsheet. It's not an Excel document, but you can open it up in just about any modern spreadsheet program. It's just a set of values that are separated basically by commas, as the name implies. And anyone who... and then when someone wants to add a language, or when more text is added to the game that needs to be translated, whoever's doing the job can just pop open the CSV in any spreadsheet editing program of their choice, save it, add whatever they need to, and then we'll be on our way. I'm going to make the file that we're going to load text.csv, and this is going to return a DS grid. Let's call it text_grid is going to be equal to that. And then I do want to have this formatted in for the actual game's use in a key value pair system. So essentially a struct where the keys are the bare strings and the values are the translated strings. And to do that, real quick, is load CSV, does this return something in row major or column major order? So the first index is going to be horizontal, the second index is going to be vertical, okay. So if I were to iterate over this, for var I equals 0, and let's say w is going to equal ds grid width, the ID is going to be text_grid, I is less than w, I plus plus. This is going to iterate over every language. And then for var j equals 0, height is going to be equal to ds grid height. J is less than height, j plus plus. This is going to iterate over every cell in the grid, and we can say text array index I, because the horizontal one is the language index, is going to be... Actually, let me put this out here. So as we iterate over each language, text index I is going to be equal to a struct. Right now, when you array create it, it's just initialized to a bunch of zeros, which is not what we want. And then as we go down the spreadsheet, text index I, and then a struct accessor for text_grid. Grid accessor is the $. The first column is going to be 0, which is going to be like the base key value pair lookup, and the row is going to be j is going to be equal to text_grid accessor I, comma j. Okay, I need another square bracket there. So the key for the key value pair in each language struct is going to be whatever's in the first column, which will be the English string, and the value will be whatever is in the like farther down on the row in the corresponding column. Okay, and that will load everything in that CSV into the text array. When we're done, ds grid destroy text grid. This whole thing should be try catch, just in case something goes wrong, just in case the file for whatever reason isn't there. Maybe the user deletes it because, I don't know, they don't know what they're doing. So I'm going to try catch this whole thing, and we'll indent that. Come on. Catch an error. And then if we catch an error, we'll just say show bug message. Couldn't load the language text, and we'll just move on. What I feel like I should do is actually initialize the objects in the text array before I try and load them from a file, because I do want them to be there, even if you can't actually load them from the file. When I run the game now, that's what we'll see. We'll see the error message because that file doesn't exist yet. And, okay, so I was gonna hope that I could deal with this after I see the show debug message, but since this all this code here is running in global scope, you can't guarantee the order that it'll run in, and you can't guarantee that the settings will have already been initialized before the text. So I guess I'll do that over here. I was gonna move it here eventually, but there's an airplane flying by. Why is this just like, it's not what I intended. That's different. Oh, that's because I was using that as an example earlier, which is not quite intended. Anyway, we should see couldn't load the settings text because it doesn't exist yet, right? Right. Let's see. What we're going to do though is let's say var translation is going to be text index settings dot language index, and then the key is going to be the $ text. If text is not equal to, if rather translation is not equal to undefined. So if the translation string has been found, we will set text equal to translation. Else, we won't. And we will show a warning message. If I run this now, we're going to end up with a lot of translated strings not found spat out in the console. Seeing as we are we're initializing the entire UI, and we're none of those things are in there. None of those strings are in there. And if I were to actually enter gameplay mode, which I can't do right now because I haven't written the code to get us there yet, and the certain UI elements would update every time the text is rendered, then we would just see even more being spat out like every frame. So to cut down on duplicate translated strings not found, I am going to, I think, reformat this a little. And maybe I should have just done this to begin with, but it gave me something to talk about, so it's not that bad. Let's instead say if variable struct exists, text index language index, and the struct that the key that we're looking for is the text. We'll handle this in a minute. Else, if the key does not exist, we will show this message, and we will also say text language index that key that is going to equal undefined. So if the key doesn't exist, we will set the key to undefined so that the key does exist. But in the if the key does exist, we're going to say translation is going to equal that, and if the translation is not equal to undefined, then text equals translation. Otherwise, we have already been informed that the key does not exist, the translation does not exist.
Hey.
And we will not spit out that text again. So hopefully that should cut down on the duplicate text a little bit more. It'll also sort of create a record of, yeah, you can see that we're not seeing duplicate text strings here. So there's no like, we're not seeing 3 copies of like button name, which is the generic text that hasn't been like initialized yet. Or we're not seeing like 3 copies of no because there's a couple different buttons that have no on them. And this will also allow us to later on, when we want to extract untranslated strings, this will allow us to save them to the CSV file as something that has not yet been set up. Okay. All right. This feels worthy of a commit message. I'm going to just say example up there so that it's not just a random string hanging on it's not just a random comment hanging on the top of the function call. The function definition, let's see, we are going to attempt to load the text from a file. Let me actually text grid is going to be initialized to -1. We're going to put in the try block, we're going to say text grid equals load CSV, and then I'm going to actually use the finally block here, and if text grid, or if ds exists, text grid, ds type grid, ds grid destroy. It wouldn't be the end of the world if this grid just is never destroyed for some accidental reason, because there's only one of them. It's loaded at the start of the game. It's not big, and it's not like we're doing it every frame or anything, but it feels better to make sure that your data structures are cleaned up at the end. Anyway, attempt to load text from a file, and attempt to pull out translated strings. All right. I can start checking off some of these. We're going to check off wrap all text in L, and I wonder, has Hack and Plan been fixed so that like cards are in the correct list and stay in the correct list? I also have the string formatter. I can check that off. If I were to like reload this page. All right, cool. They stay there. I don't know what was going on. Was it yesterday that I did this? It feels longer ago than that. Look up translated strings based on language. All right, we've done that. This last one, extract text to JSON and load the JSON. This is going to be changed to CSV because I've decided that I would rather save text to CSV than JSON. You can definitely format this nicely when in JSON, but I think it would be easier for people who want to actually like work on this to just use a spreadsheet program, whatever that happens to be, because almost everyone has a spreadsheet program installed on their computer, whether that's Excel or one of the open source equivalents. I think even Google Drive can load a CSV from your computer and resave it. Google Sheets, rather. This is what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to go into the back into the translation function here, and I am not going to, for the most part, I'm not going to include a game editor in this game the way that I did in Bombardier, which added a lot to the complexity and a lot to the development time. But I will say that when you find a string that has not been translated, we will attempt to save the untranslated strings, to save the entire structure again. So we're going to basically do the reverse of this. I'm going to define another function so that it's not taking up space in the localization function. I might also include a macro to switch this off in the shipped game, like, entirely. But, function, save, text, CSV. And I guess we can take the file name as a parameter. So first we need to turn this text object into CSV. So first I'm going to say, does GameMaker have a save CSV function? No, I'm on my own for that. Okay, I guess I'm on my own for that. Yeah, no, all right. I have a better idea. So, we're going to do a little bit of fast string concatenation here. We're going to just, this is going to be a static buffer that we're creating, and this is just so that every time we call this function, we don't have to reallocate the space, and we can just recycle the one that we used previously. We're going to seek to the beginning, and then we're going to build a CSV by... All right, let me think carefully about this. So first I need to extract the keys. The keys are going to be like the base strings, and the keys are going to be var keys equals variable struct get names. Text index 0 is English, and English is like the core, like the base set of strings. And then we can say for var I equals 0 and equals, I'll call it width because I called it that when we were loading them in. Array length text, I is greater than width, I is less than width, I plus plus. We can first iterate over each column, which is going to be each language. No, I'm going to want to do that in the reverse, aren't I? Because we're going to need to h is going to be equal to array length keys, I is less than h, I plus plus, and then we can loop over each language, and we can write buffer write into the output the buffer type is going to be a text, buffer text, and the value is going to be text index j, key is going to be keys index I. Alright, so this is going to be a lot like looking up the string to display in the game, except instead of to display it in the game, we are going to apparently be missing another piece of punctuation. We're going to be taking the text and outputting it into the file. And if this value might be undefined, because if it's not found when the game tries to look it up, it'll set it to undefined. And we don't want to write undefined. We would instead want to write just an empty string if it's undefined. So we can say if translation is not equal to undefined. We can use the good old conditional operator. If it's not undefined, we'll write it, the text as it is, and if it is, we will just write an empty string. And then once that this massive string, we'll also want to follow this up with a comma. Like that. And once that massive string has been written, at the end of each line we need a new line, a line break. Do you still need to use the carriage return before \n on Windows? Because I feel like I've seen inconsistent behavior with that in the past. You might only need \n. I'm going to go with /r/n first. Anyway, once that's done, we can buffer save. I'm going to say buffer save extended. The buffer is going to be the output. The file name is going to be the file name that we passed in as an argument. The offset is going to be starting from 0, and the size is going to be buffer tell, like that. And then since the output buffer is going to be saved for the next time the function is called, we don't have to delete it. Can we say buffer save extended async? Is that a... I'm just curious. Otherwise, I'll just go with buffer save extended. Alright, I think that should be all we need. So I will... when the translated string has not been found, I will say save text CSV, and the file name can just be text.csv. You can make this a macro if you want, I suppose. It's only going to be used in these two places. This will not save over the original file. The original file will be part of the game's included files, and when it's saved, it'll go to the local storage instead. It's GameMaker's file system. It's kind of weird. This won't overwrite anything. It'll just be saved to local storage anytime you run the game and you find a string that isn't translated. One thing I will do, though, is that the default string for a string that has not been translated will be the empty string, and in that case, I will want to show this message. So I'm going to add a second condition onto this. If variable struct exists and the value is not equal to the empty string. If it is equal to the empty string, we'll do this again, and we'll set it to undefined so that the game knows to like warn you and whatever. That might be a questionable decision. I can't think of any reasons why this would be a problem. I don't think there are any UR elements in the game that would just have an empty string on them. Although I guess if I want to be safe, if text is equal to the empty string, return empty string. I can do that at the top just as a way to bail out of if that happens by accident somewhere and doesn't create like a runaway loop of text not found. Let's see, if I run the game now, and if I just like page through some of the menus, well, I guess this all would have been done in the beginning, but if I were to go into local storage, where are we? LNAG bullet hell. We have a text.csv. And it's only 164 bytes, which feels on the small side for text. And did we just say like a bunch of empty strings? That seems to be what we've done. So it's not quite working. If I were to open this up in Notepad. Alright, we do have a bunch of empty strings. Let's see. I'm going to run the game in debug mode, and I'm going to see what exactly is in. Yes. I'm going to see exactly what is in the struct. What am I looking for? I'm looking for variables, globals, text. There's going to be two arrays here. Why are there two entries for each of these? Okay, one thing that I realize I should do is, since English is like the base language that we're working with here, if settings.language index is equal to 0, then instead of doing all this, we're just going to sort of reflectively set the key to itself, the value in that struct to itself, and that way the actual strings for the English versions will be there. This is a little bit of a, as I said, this is kind of a not amazingly, I need to run this in debug mode. This is kind of not an amazingly robust solution for storing text and handling text, but since this is not going to be like a massive game with a lot of literature in it, we should be okay. Unable to convert string comma to float. Why are we trying to convert string comma to float? Translation is just a 0. Why is that a 0? I feel like before I fix whatever problem popped up here, I'm gonna want to find out why these are all empty keys. You know what? For one, it may be trying to actually, since this isn't in the included files yet, it may be trying to load text.csv, which would be a bit of a problem, since that's just an empty file, which I don't want. So if I were to run it now, would we have all those duplicate keys in it again? Alright, it didn't crash, which is good. No runaway empty keys or anything like that, but... Alright, the file itself is 710 bytes now. Okay, so it did actually, why is there just a hyphen? I don't know why there's a hyphen.
Hey.
The pirate English, the test language settings are all empty strings, as one might expect, which I think is a sign that we're heading in the right direction. Alright, I think that's all I need to know, although I will double check. Are the empty strings gone? The empty strings are gone. Okay, that's good. The empty strings are gone. Also, /r/n apparently was the correct line break. Is there anything else I want to do? I want to, like, since these aren't in order, struct keys are stored in a random order. I kind of like them to be in order. I'd like them to be at least alphabetized. This should put them in ascending order or descending order. I don't remember. Let me delete this again and have a look. I will need to know that, it doesn't, like, erroneously attempt to, like, load these strings and have it not work correctly. But let's see, it looks like we are in alphabetical order. Back to menu button, name, collectibles. You found FPS, full screen language, bunch of levels. So that's at least that. It would be nice if I could group them by context, like main menu stuff versus in-game stuff versus setting stuff. But let's see, that would be a bit of a much more significant job. I would need to arrange this data a little bit differently. So instead, we'll settle for it being alphabetized. Okay, now we'll have this serve as a test run for loading the game. I could insert some silly ones. So if I were to open this again, I should just, like, leave this open. For pirate speak, like, language, lingo is a sufficiently pirate-sounding, yes, we will use CSV, sufficiently pirate-sounding term for language. And if I were to load this in now, again, it will attempt to load it from the included files. If I go to settings and switch this to pirate, okay, good. So this is appropriately translated. That's Hello World. This is the weirdest Hello World ever. But we know that it works, which is what I care about. Unfortunately, I don't actually have the creativity to translate each and every one of these to pirate speak, but I will attempt to make some of these at least a little bit silly. Okay, I'm gonna need to... This here, would you like to quit the game? This was one single, like, set of text that has a line break in it that was broken up into multiple lines when it was saved, so I'm going to need to properly account for that. I'm gonna need to, like, sanitize that. Same for would you like to restart the level? Alright, let's not save. I'm gonna delete this and restart it from scratch anyway. So when we save, we're gonna string replace all the translation literal occurrences of the new line with an escaped new line. This will put an actual backslash in the file. So let me try putting the backslash in the file. We also didn't get the text not found in the when the game started too, because English is, like, there by default again. So that is going to cause it to attempt to save all the text. I'm going to open this up again. We are now 712 bytes up from 710, which is a good sign because that makes it sound like it's actually inserted the new line. Yeah, would you like to /n quit the game? Okay. Apparently, like, let's not have LibreOffice ask this every time I try to save. Apparently, like, the pirate accent is almost entirely made up. Like, there is no, like, actual language that's like a vast swabs. I feel like it's a bit of an amalgam of multiple languages from like countries that had large amounts of piracy in like the 18th century, and popular culture just sort of mushed them all together. Let's see. We're also going to need to do the same when loading the text in. If I were to go to Pirate Speak and try to display "Would you like to quit the game?"
Hey.
It would literally have that \n there when it loads it in, because that is actually those characters and it is not the escape sequence. So when we load it in, I'm going to need to do the reverse. I'm going to need to like unsanitize it, for lack of better words. So let's switch that to Pirate English. Let's go back. Quit the game. No. Okay. Would you like to quit? That is a different text label. It should probably be the same text in both cases, just to cut down on the amount of text in the game. But why are we not doing that one? Did we save? Oh, you know what it is? That was the other problem that I was about to bring up when I found out that this was actually completely broken. First, string replace all. The substring is going to be the escaped \n, and the new string is going to be the actual \n. Actually, no, I want to show this broken. When I show it broken, I'll just I'll uncomment that line and I'll get rid of this one. Text that isn't fetched like in the draw event when the text is drawn, like your score is %0. Text that's just like yes, no, whatever. That is only translated at the beginning when the button is created, when the UI elements are created, and if you like change the language to something else, that will not be updated. So if I were to go to parent UI is one word, and go to UI text, the get text function should handle this. That's going to present its own problem, because then you're going to try and like... Okay, I'm going to have to actually rewrite a little bit of code here. If we go to variable definitions, I can call this something like source text. And instead of... just initialize that to empty string. Instead of drawing the source text directly, the default getText method can be self.text is going to be localizing the source text, and then we can just draw the localized version like that. All right, and the same is going to need to be done for buttons. So we have source text like that, and source text is that, and the update. All right, so it's not get text and buttons, it's update, but the update can be that. All right, and that should be all I have to change. None of the variable definitions in the room editor should have changed. That is blank. That's going to be a problem. Why is that? What changed? Oh, source text was set to an empty string. Oops. That would do it. I'm glad the problem was that easy. So let's set the language to Pirate English, and let's go back. And I saw one \n that wasn't supposed to be there. Here's another \n that's not supposed to be there. Would you like to quit the game? Is apparently... Did I forget to update the text on that label? This should be like load it, pick a save to load or something like that. I'll fix that in a minute. Now, if I were to get rid of this and uncomment this line, we should have that problem solved. And set the language to Pirate English. Would you like to quit the game? Properly has a line break. Alright, cool. It's loaded from the file correctly. That's nice. Before I forget, before I commit anything, because I know I'm going to forget, let's go to room title, and on the save select screen, and we'll just say choose a save slot to load instead of would you like to quit the game. Much better. I can't believe I didn't notice that last time. Alright, awesome. So that is how the basics of the localization system is going to work. There's one more thing I'd like to do, and that is, I don't know if... Can I just insert a header? Can I say insert row above, and this can be English. This is text that will not be used by the game. It will not be displayed in the game anywhere, but it will be text that is like to help anyone who is editing this file. I'm the actual worst when it comes to languages that aren't computer languages, and I can't remember the exact like spelling of like Francois or I think it's Italiano in Italian. Anyway, but that's gonna be the idea. If I load this again, and if I try to display some text in the game that isn't contained, and if I, for example, the settings menu, if I go back, music volume and effects volume needs the percent after it. If I go back to the CSV, alright, the headers are still there, which is what I want. Alright, that's good. Before I forget, again, in the settings, I believe you need a percent sign after this, and I believe you need a percent sign after this. And in title quit, I am going to change this back to title quit. I will change this back to would you like to quit the game, just so that it's consistent with all the other text. And then I can delete the one line, the redundant line from this file. Let's delete that row. Okay. So we have translations. That took a little bit. That took about an hour 20 minutes. Not sure how much of that's going to be cut out to me goofing around and like brute force updating all of the strings in the game that need the L function wrapped around them. But now we have language. If anyone's creative enough to like come up with pirate speak funny silly equivalents to all the text in the game, feel free to issue a pull request. To the user who, I can't remember your name, I'm sorry, who volunteered to do Russian translation for this game, if you're still here, I would kind of suggest holding off on until later in the game's development to do that, because I am going to be undoubtedly adding more text to the game, in things like the collectibles menu and the credits screen and that sort of thing. I didn't do the credit screen yet. That's going to need to be made at some point. Just so that you're not having to constantly come back to add strings. I would recommend not doing that until later. And if anyone else wants to volunteer to add translations, same deal. let's see. Extract the text to CSV and load the CSV. That is done. Player pause state back to menu, win lose menu back to menu, and that sort of thing did not get done today, and I don't want to drag this out for even longer because this recording is almost an hour and a half. I will, however, make a couple commits to the things that I've changed. Oh, you know what also I need to do? No, I won't do this yet. I was going to say I'm going to need to put the CSV in the included files. Yes, I will. I'll do that now. There's really no reason not to. So if I just go into data files and add text.csv, that'll appear in the game's data files now. And there's going to be at least like a couple translated strings into Pirate Speak English for testing purposes. And I will also make this a macro for the file name, just because good practice. All right. All right, I think that's it. Let me commit these changes. All right, and one more thing that I did mention, and I almost forgot, is let's make another macro. And this is going to be save on missing text, and that's going to default to true. When we call the save text to CSV function, we'll only do it if save on missing text is true. And I will add myself another config below the default one, which is called release. And in the release config for finished versions of the game, we will not do that, just so that the user doesn't have the game saving that CSV in the background and potentially slowing things down. So that's going to be that. I am going to make this 0.16. And I'm going to push these changes up to GitHub, and I'm going to make a week 16 release. This is a pre-release, that's that. That is now on GitHub. If anyone wants to play around with it. Let's see, where are we on Sprint 2? So I want to say we knocked out like 14% of the points on Sprint 2 today. The tech stuff was worth a lot. That did take a long time. That took longer than I really wanted it to. I wanted this to be less than an hour. Hey. But we got there in the end. And hopefully this should be a fairly robust system for simple games. If you want to do something like this on your own, go ahead. Be wary that it doesn't work great for things like games with a lot of dialogue in them, like RPGs, because then you really do have a lot of text and it's really not organized in any way. And that could be, in cases like that, you start to want to be able to separate like your dialogue text from your UI text from whatever. I'm going to stop here now. So, my name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games. If you want the code for this, look for the link to the GitHub repository down in the video description, which you probably saw just a minute ago. I try to post about 2 game dev videos a week. One, let's make a game like this, and one tutorial. I like to focus on the weirder things you can do in GameMaker. So if you're interested in any of that, feel free to subscribe. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute towards these videos being made, look for links to that in all the usual places. You can see some fun things like your name in the credits, or about once a month I post a preview of my future plans. I hope you all found that interesting, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Army Armbuster, DJ Gibbles, Edward Holt, GameMaker, Gunnar Clovis, Keyexy, Posho, Sindra Larson, Squarecrow, Then Nothing Happened, and Zenjamin for supporting these videos. If you want to see your name in the credits or hear yourself shouted out at the end like this, head on over to the page